Hello and welcome to the next episode in my Learn With Me Opsix series. So far we've discussed all the major features of the synthesizer, my general impressions of it, we've looked at the operators individually, we've built upon that into FM sounds and non-FM sounds, and in the last two episodes we've been designing a patch trying to combine what we've learned into making a single, more complex sound. So we've managed to make something which is reasonably usable. It has a bit of expression, so let me play it a little. Bit of mod wheel control. So it's got some movement to it, it's got some texture to it, but it's definitely a pad. So what might we want to do here? Well, first thing I can think of is it might be interesting to try and detune this a little bit to bring in some more natural pulsing movement to the sound. So let's start an operator 1 and let's just see what happens if we did this a lot. Okay, I think that's working reasonably well. The detune just adds a little bit of phase shift. One thing that I can do here is, at the moment the operator phases are locked, I can put them into free mode, which means that there'll be slight variations in where the operator oscillators phase are when they start, so it'll add a little bit more variation, and variation is really what I've been looking for here. Let's listen to the... Okay, so to me that sounds fine. I was a little bit concerned that it might sound too deep or too high-pitched in the central register, but to me that sounds fine. An interesting thought. Okay, so what I did is add a little bit of LFO1 controlled by the mod wheel to the overall program pitch. So it's 0.15 semitones or 15 cents. So it's a relatively small, even at its maximum, but I think that gives us some more variation, and I think the mod wheel is probably the right place to have it. So what else do we have to work with here? See what this shape is doing. So not only do I have the envelope coming up, I'm thinking what I might like is to have the velocity actually open the filter itself. So that's another modulation here. So velocity to filter cutoff. Okay, I think that's working reasonably well. So what else do we have to look at here? Well, I think it would be interesting to see how this sounds with a unison. So at the moment, remember, this is just when I press one note, one voice is being played. The voice is relatively complicated. In fact, maybe before I do that, I'll see if there's anything that I want to do with the envelopes. So one of the things that I was thinking is we have a little bit of timbre variation available with the depth parameter. So what I might do is use one of these envelopes, let's say envelope 3, because we've used envelope 2 already there. Envelope 3, and let's go 3 seconds, 3 seconds. And this envelope can adjust the depth of this operator. Now this I need to be careful with because I happen to know that if this depth goes too high, we end up with feedback that actually stops the voice from working. So hopefully I don't do that. So we can say envelope 2, just check that was the right one. No, envelope 3. So envelope 3 going to operator 1. Parameter is I miss it. Ah, here you go. Ring depth. So I think this can be 20% because I've set it to 29. I'm going to turn the other voices off temporarily just to listen to that. Okay, I just wanted to add a little bit more variation or a little bit more depth to the sound there. Okay, I like that. So now I think we're not using HEG1 or EG1, which is normally routed to pitch. We don't have to use all of these modulation sources just because they're there. I'm inclined to say we don't use that. Note also that I've been using triangle wave for all of these, mostly because they're quite subtle. Sometimes what I do here is I'll use things like square wave with much more extreme modulation, sometimes beat synced. Then we can get rhythmic elements coming out in these things, especially when you have them voice synced, but you have a way of making them run at different rates on different keys. Maybe I'll do that as a final just to use up the last mod slot. So I think probably the filter is the most obvious one. So let's say that the note on the keyboard is going to adjust the filter EG speed. So what this is going to mean is the higher the pitch of the note that I play, the slower that LFO will be. So it won't be immediately obvious, but not only are they starting out of phase, but they are running at different rates. So this means that their phasing will shift continuously as opposed to being a fixed phasing. If I'd have saved more of these modulation slots, then I may have done something else there. So let's listen now to the effect of these overall parameters for attack. Let's see what happens if we set the attack very long. Okay, so let's now listen to the unison that I was talking about. Let's try 2 unison big detune. Okay, so I think unison 2 is fine. In general, I don't like to go mad with unison, even though you have potentially 32 voices available to you here. If you set unison 4, then suddenly you only have 8 voices available, and with a sound like this, which has a long release, 8 voices, you can actually end up with voice stealing. If I leave this unison on 2, we effectively have 16 voices available. So if I play a 6-note chord and then another 6-note chord, while the previous one's playing, there's only 12 voices. If I played another 6-note chord while the first set was still releasing, I might steal 2 of the voices, but I think the probability of voice stealing is low. But as that unison goes up, we're more and more likely to voice steal. So I think the final port of call here is going to be effects. So let's, to start with, just turn the effect off and only turn on this first effect. The flanger is okay. I think the flanger already adds another dimension to that motion. I think I've mentioned previously when talking about sound design, even though effects can be used as kind of features in a mix, effects can also form part of your sound design. And for me, this flanger especially, this is a sound design mix feature. So let's go to the next one. Let's see what we might want. Let's see. Okay, so I added a little bit of distortion. It's a little bit of the drive. It just adds a slight grittiness. Another way we can get a bit of grittiness is we can turn on a lo-fi mode. This means that the way the FM algorithm is executed is designed to be less careful about avoiding aliasing, so you get a slightly more lo-fi sound. I think, given that I've been looking for texture, I think that's somewhere we can find a bit of texture. So let's go to the final effect. It's really shouting out for a shimmer, but I feel like shimmer is what everyone always does, so I'm not going to use it. I'm going to go for a spring. So I still have that. So we have some pitch modulation when the mod wheel is all the way up. So this, I noticed I hadn't adjusted this ratio. It doesn't matter because this is sending noise. Okay, I feel like we've got where we wanted to go. So let me at least save that. So I hope that this is roughly the end of this journey with the Opsix that we were going on together. Starting with the most fundamental features, finishing using almost all of the features of the device. One of the features we haven't used, and I guess might be interesting to use as a final step, is that's not the ARP and the sequencer. Those are interesting in their own right, but rather the randomize feature. So you can specify a scope of the randomization. So this means what parameters are getting randomized. So you can randomize the sequence, you can randomize arpeggiator features or any of the sections, you can randomize the patch but not the sequencer and ARP, or you can randomize the whole thing. So I can randomize the patch. My options are noise, meaning add noise to what's there, randomize, meaning pick random values, shuffle, meaning permute the parameters. So I'm going to add noise, and I'm going to add a small amount of noise, 1%, and we'll just see how it sounds. Let's do it again. And again. I feel like we're getting something a little different, but I'm going to take a bit more noise in. 5%, 5 times as much. Again. %, again. %. Okay, now we're getting out there. Again, 20%. So hopefully you can see that randomization, obviously when you get the value of the randomization quite high, you end up with some pretty out there sounds. In fact, these are no longer modulating anything. So if we go and look at the user algorithm, it's edited that user algorithm for me, and it's edited in probably the not most convenient of manners. Let's just throw a load in. Whoa, that was loud. Okay, so I will stop messing around, but hopefully that illustrated that this randomization process, alongside these user algorithms and alongside all the other features we've talked about, can be used to achieve some quite interesting sounds. Obviously, as I mentioned, I've gone for something here which is verging on a drone slash pad slash very textured sound. But that's not the only thing that we could do. So let's go back to it. We could have gone for something rhythmic. We could have used rhythmic effects. We could have used the mod matrix to modulate those effects. So imagine something like a tape delay where the tape is being stretched. So there's a lot of capacity for glitchy sounds and modulated sounds, as well as these smooth and swelling sounds. So I think, as I said before, we've really reached the end of this journey together, learning about the Opsix. I'm not sure that there are any significant features except the ARP and the sequencer, which are not things that I tend to use very much, that are here to explore, though I believe the sequencer can store parameter changes. So even though we run out of mod slots, it's possible to record a sequence which has some additional modulation. So yes, the sequencer could be another modulation source to add here. So I hope that you have been enjoying this series, and you have enjoyed the series so far. Most likely this is the last episode in this series, so thank you for joining me. Thank you for hopefully having watched all of these episodes. I really hope that you enjoyed them. I hope you found them useful. I've really enjoyed going through this process and learning this synth, and I think it's really going to take an important role in my music making setup going forwards. So all that remains to be said is thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate you, and goodbye.